Today's video is going to be about getting a driving license, driving tests, theory, practical, how to navigate it. There's going to be a very quick Q&A at the end as well, so watch till the end because I'm going to answer very basic questions that I get asked very frequently and people have limited knowledge about, especially because you're not living in UK. So we're going to start off right now. I have to take Hadi for his test. Okay, so right now we're going to drop Hadi off to test center. He's going to take the driving theory test, and we'll talk more about driving license, how to obtain your provisional and your what's the other one called, full license, and we will talk about some tips and some suggestions on the way. So let's go drop him off because he's got his test in about half an hour. So first things first, why do I even need a license? Is it compulsory? No, it's not compulsory to have a driving license for you to work in UK, but certain jobs will require you to have a license with you. Is it compulsory in medicine? Kind of, but also not. So a driving license will let you drive a car, and some professions, for example, let's say GP, when they do home visits, do need to drive their cars to home visits, otherwise they will just ask you to pay for the taxi yourself. If you do drive a car, you get paid for all the expenses, so you know, the petrol and everything, by your employing trust, so that's a good benefit. But if you're taking a taxi, they might not pay you for the taxi. Also, because you're driving, it gives you a bit of freedom, so you don't have to wait in rain in bus stops and stuff, so you can actually very quickly commute from one place to another. To get your insurance, your MOT, your service, you have to pay for your parking, so there are different downsides for driving as well. However, when I was here and didn't have a family, I didn't drive and was quite happy with it. When you've got a family, because you have to drive around your kids, your wife, you have to go shopping and stuff all like that. So yes, get a license, and it's almost always going to help you in the long run. So to start the process, first thing you're going to do is go on the website gov.uk and you make an account. It's very easy to get an account there. It's no big deal. Once you've got a gov.uk account, you can apply for a provisional driving license. Now it's very straightforward, but you need a online payment method, so it can be your credit card or your debit card or Master, Visa, whatever. They're gonna ask you for a ID document, so you're gonna have to scan and send to them, and they will ask you for an address they can send your license to. Once you've done that, a few days later, the license will come to your doorstep. So now that you've got the license, what does it allow you to do? So with any kind of driving license, be provisional or a full driving license, it basically acts as a proof of your address. So it's another thing to have on you. It's a proof of ID, proof of address. It's got your picture on it, so you can use it as an ID or an address proof for any official documentation later on. Once you've got your provisional license, you can also drive with a skilled instructor who can instruct you. Anyone who's got a full driving license for more than 3 years can instruct you. However, the rules and guidances keep changing, so keep checking on them, because by the time you watch this video, they might have already changed. You can also then book your theory test, which I'm gonna ask Hadi to talk to us about, because he's taken it much more recently, so he'll have a better grasp of, you know, what comes in the theory test. Okay, so Hadi's just taken the test, so we're gonna ask him some basic details. So first of all, Hadi, tell us, how did you go about booking your theory test?
So it's an online process. You go to a website, the government official website. So what they want to know from you is obviously your address. When you get your provisional license, there's a number on that. They'll ask for that number, and there's obviously an option to select the dates, and then you just make the payment, which is £24.
All right, so once you booked the test, how did you go about preparing for it?
So there's many ways to prepare for the test. Nowadays, obviously, you guys know there's YouTube and a lot of options. But what I would suggest is you get the official DVSA guide, which is basically an online portal which has all the different questions, and it also has mock tests. And it's very intuitive. It also kind of tells you how prepared you are. It's like a meter that basically judges how many answers you get correct. There's another part to the test, which is basically the hazard perception. For that, I would recommend watching different YouTube videos.
So talking about the hazard perception bit, when I took the test, that was about 6 years ago. The hazard perception was also a CD provided by DVSA, and it used to have different videos in it, but apparently no one could, or Hadi couldn't find them. So if anyone knows where to find those videos, just comment below. Otherwise, as Hadi said, go on YouTube and find out about it. So the next question I was going to ask Hadi is how much did that portal or that resource cost you?
Okay, so they have a few options. It's basically like a subscription. They have a 30-day subscription, a 6-month subscription, and a yearly subscription. So I went for the 30-day subscription, and that was £15. And there's also a promo code that was just there, and that was like 20% off. So I paid £12 for that.
It gives you a lot of flexibility. So if you don't think you're going to be taking your test within the next 30 days, you may just want to opt for the 6-month subscription, and that might be cheaper for you. I think everyone would like to know is what was the test like? So what was the pattern of the test, and tell us more about it.
There's 2 parts to it. The first part is a MCQ based part, which is basically you have 57 minutes to do 50 MCQs, and you have 4 options, and these are like relatively simple. They're just highway code. You find all the information there. So the last 3 questions of these MCQs are basically based on a video. So they show you a video clip, and you kind of like they ask you questions on that video clip, in that video clip. Then you have a 3-minute break, and after that you have a hazard perception part. It's basically there's 14 video clips, and you have to look at the video clips, and you have to pinpoint a emerging hazard. Let's say if something is pulling out in front of you and you have to apply your brakes, that would be an emerging hazard. And the way they kind of go about it is the earlier you can kind of detect the hazard, so that's the earlier you click, the more points you get. So I'll talk a bit about the passing mark. So for the MCQ part, out of 50 questions, you need to get 43 right. If you get any less than that, you fail the test. And for the hazard perception, it's 75 marks, and you need to get at least 44.
So as you can see, 43 out of 50, it's a serious task. You cannot be lenient. You have to prepare really well for the theory test. Hazard perception, basically the quicker you respond to the hazard, the more marks you score. So you cannot just sit there and wait for a hazard. You have to pinpoint the hazard. Hazard is anything which might pose a risk or a threat to either yourself or other road users. So you have to pinpoint that on the video and click on it very quickly. Congratulations, because you've passed, haven't you?
Yeah.
How much did you score?
So out of the 50, I got 44, so just on the borderline. But in the hazard perception, I did rather well. I got 63 out of 75.
There you go. As long as your pass, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
You don't get any certificates or scorecards. Anyway, thank you very much, and we'll carry on. We'll tell you more about the practical bit. It is not mandatory to have a theory test before you can start taking your driving lessons, so I would suggest you can start taking your driving lessons as soon as you get hold of your provisional license. However, it does help if you've taken the theory test before, because then you know the rules of the road, the highway code, all of that. So basically, you're not a hazard to other people, especially the instructor who's coming with you. Once you've done your theory test, only then you can take your practical test. Yes, you can prepare for your practical test, take your driving lessons before your theory test, but you cannot take the practical test without your theory. So once you've done your theory test, you apply for your practical test. The practical test takes place in a test center. My suggestion, find out which test center has a better pass rate. It doesn't depend on that test center. They have the DVLA has standards which it tests you against. The reason certain test centers have a better pass rate is because of the general traffic of that particular location. So let's say you're going on your driving test, but you have to tackle a very dodgy or a very poor driving conditions of, let's say, I'm just going to give you an example here, Bradford, and it's just the chance of you getting a fail in that test becomes higher. So it's one of the locations where passing is a bit more difficult. Now, do not be disheartened if you are not able to pass the test first time. The UK's driving test is one of the most difficult in the entire world. I would say there are few suggestions I can make for you to be able to pass the practical bit of the driving test. Number one, focus on the number of hours you have driven. So a lot of people do not want to drive with instructors because obviously it costs money. However, you need to get a feel of the road, and you need to get behind the wheel and get used to driving. So if you're not doing that, basically you're going to make up a mistake at the final test, and you don't want that. So always get a habit of doing a certain number of hours. I used to drive a lot in Pakistan, so when I came here, I made a mistake of initially starting my driving lessons, and then after I had to give up because of my A&E rotation. It was very busy, so I picked it up later, and basically because of this discontinuity, I did 10 hours before and then 10 hours later, and it was total of 20 hours before I could take the test. If you're not going with a driving school which is a rip-off, then most of the time the instructors are good enough. They will tell you when you are ready to take the test. My instructor, for example, told me that my driving is not bad. He's very happy with the way I drive. It's just that because I've been driving in Pakistan, obviously people who've driven in India and Pakistan know that you pick up a lot of bad habits on the road. He just said you have to get rid of those bad habits and you are ready to take the test. If you've never driven before and it's the first time you're driving, then take your time, because it always takes more time to build up those reflexes in the beginning. So do not rush for it, because the more you rush for it, the more the chances of you failing. And if you fail, basically you have to fill up the cost of your test. You have to go and book it again, take leave for it, so just make sure that you get enough practice and you are used to driving before you go and take your practical driving test. Because I'm filming this during COVID times, I need to tell you this, that for practical driving tests, you have to take a rapid COVID test before you can actually go to the test center and sit with the driving instructor. So you'll have to find out how to take that as well. Now, more on the details, how to book the test. You go online, you book it on a similar fashion that you book the theory test. You pay a higher amount, so for this is about 65 pounds for the practical driving test. It will then let you choose a time slot and the testing center. So you book your testing center, you book your time slot, and then there you go. You just have to arrive on the day to the test center. You need to bring your ID, your provisional license, and your theory pass certificate. COVID times, you need to have a negative test. You need to bring your mask when you're going in with the driver. What they do on the day of the test, before you get into the car, they will introduce themselves. They'll ask you to read a number plate from 20 meters, and that is their quick check of whether your eyesight is good enough or not. Once you get in the car, they will then ask you to drive around, and the whole test lasts about 40 minutes, 40. And in those 40 minutes, you'll be asked to drive around. You'll be given instructions by your test instructor, and basically they will judge you. You are allowed to bring an extra person with you for moral support, etc. So some people take their instructors on the back of the car, some people will take their spouses on the back of the car. I went on my own, and I suggest, for someone like me, I would just go alone, just because I'm much more comfortable. I don't want, other people watching and staring and judging me. Another thing that you need to be aware is what car you will take. So the driving school you're taking lessons from can provide you with the same car. So if you got that car, that's the best way ahead, because you practice on that car, you know how that car works. And if you got your own car for some reason, you've been practicing on a different car, you've been practicing your maneuvers and stuff on your different car, then you can take that car and drive on it, especially if it's a automatic car or a car who's got special controls that basically suit your driving needs. There are certain mistakes which are called majors. If you make even a single major mistake, that is basically a straightforward fail. There are certain mistakes called minors. You are allowed to make quite a few minor mistakes, to be honest. I think I had one minor on my test, but I think you're allowed a decent number of minor mistakes. Well, what will be a major mistake? So any mistake which jeopardizes safety of yourself or other drivers, or poses a hazard to the road users at all, will become a major mistake. So you braked too late, you braked too hard, you've not given indicator, you not used mirrors, so many different things. The reason I would suggest go with a reputable driving school is because they will point it all out for you. And this is the advice one of my relatives gave to me when I initially came. They said to me, look, you'll find cheaper driving schools and you'll find good quality driving schools. The good quality driving schools are going to be more expensive because they've got more trained instructors. Some of them have been examiners in the past, so they know exactly what people fail on, and they will guide you correctly on how to pass the test. My driving school cost me, I think personally, I don't remember now, but I think it cost me about 15 to 20 pounds an hour. So it's expensive. That covered the car that I was using. That also covered my insurance for that car that I was using, and that will also cover the price of the instructor who was giving me lessons. But because he was a good instructor, he would tell me exactly what specific things they look for. So he told me these are the most common routes they will take you. So in my city, he said the most common thing you're judged on are roundabouts, and then they guide you and they give you exact precise directions for your maneuvers. So you have to do different maneuvers. You have to do a 3-point turn, sometimes you have to do a reverse park, parallel park. So all of those they give you clear instructions for, and basically if you follow the instructions you end up doing the maneuver really well. But my advice is go with a reputable driving school with an instructor who knows what he's doing, because they might actually save you money by not letting you fail. Now, some common questions. Do I really need a provisional license to drive in UK? No. You don't always need it, but you need it for your full license, so I would always apply for provisional license. However, you can drive in UK with an international license for about a year, I think. The insurance cost is a bit higher. However, you can drive on the road. It gives you much practice. You can actually go get a provisional license, go and take the test while you still have the validity of your international license. So no, you don't always need a UK full license to drive, but if you got an international license, then I would just very quickly try and switch it to a full UK license. Second question, eyesight. So eyesight, as it says on the website, you should be able to read a number plate from 20 meters away. All the number plates are standard size here in UK. So you can just test your eyesight. If you think there is any deficiency, go to your optician, get the visual aids that you need. It could be glasses, it could be lenses. Whatever your visual aid is, basically you will be legally bound to drive with your visual aids on if you cannot read a number plate from 20 meters away. If you've got other problems with your vision, it's better to check with your doctor before you apply for the license, because there's certain conditions you have to declare to DVLA, including problems with your vision, but there are also other conditions that you have to inform DVLA. So I would just Google medical conditions I need to inform DVLA about, because if you do not inform DVLA for certain medical conditions and they find out about it for any reason, or you run into an accident, your insurance may be declined, the DVLA may even put a charge on you, they may revoke your license. So it's always better to report these conditions. Some of you might have heard about the third test which people take. So it's called a post-pass or something. It's basically the DVLA has got this third test you can take, which kind of gives you a certification that you are a safe driver, and their reasoning for that is if you present that test result to your insurance provider, your insurance might be cheaper. Now, in my experience of 8 years of living in UK, I've not found even a single insurance provider who asks you for that test. So whether or not it helps or not, I don't know, because I've not taken it, but I used to be a long trained driver by the time I reach UK, but personally I don't think it gives you any insurance or financial benefits. Which driving schools do I recommend? So I recommend either AA or BSM, so British School of Motoring, or AA, I don't know what it stands for, but it's a very famous driving school. Just because they're national driving schools, they have trained instructors, and their cars are purpose built, insured, and the instructors are purpose trained for this whole, driving and licensing category. If you want to go with any other driving school, I would definitely search on internet and look what reviews they've been getting. Also, just do a Google search and find out, what kind of reviews they've been getting. Ask around and see what people say about it. A lot of driving schools will give you a cheaper price, but at the end of the day, if they cannot make you pass, then there's literally no point wasting money on those instructing or driving schools. The question is, do I really have to take driving lessons in order to take my practical test? No, you don't. If you think you're very confident, you know all the rules and you can drive in UK without any problems, you don't have to take driving lessons, and you can take the practical test. You can, if you pass it, you'll get your full license. So that is the way to go, especially if you've come on an international driving license where, you know, you've been driving in UK on your international license and now you feel ready and you take the full test and you pass it. If you've not driven in UK though, the standards are very high. It's very obviously useful to get used to the roads, so I would suggest take the driving lessons. How many you need depends on your conditions, your personal experience, how comfortable you are behind the wheel. So most important thing, which I've saved for the end, is tips and tricks to pass the test. Now, I don't have any magic advice. All I would say is, when you are booking your test, as I said before, book it at a place which has a better pass rate. A lot of places will have better pass rates than others, and that basically means the traffic in that place is a bit better and the roundabouts are probably less tricky, and turns and signals are less tricky. For example, if you're driving in central London, it's probably going to be more difficult for you. Also, try and practice your driving where you're actually going to take your test. So if you've been taking most of your driving lessons, let's say in Doncaster, and then you turn up in London to take your driving test, it's not going to go well for you. What time of the day do you want to take it? What time of the year you want to take it? Time of the day, obviously mornings, and pack-up times are going to be busy. So you go on the road, you'll be either caught up in traffic, people will be driving rashly around signals, so just have to be careful. Try and book not in early morning or late in the evening. Another thing to think about is traffic is much lighter if you've got school holidays, so you can book your driving test during school holidays, and it's a very popular season of taking driving tests, so a lot of people will be booking in that same sort of time period. So just plan in advance and book in advance. Right now, because of COVID, there is a big waiting list, so if you want to take your driving test, you have to just book in advance. Another thing which you need to keep in mind is auto versus manual. So if you are getting a driving license on a manual vehicle, you can drive an automatic vehicle. If you're getting a license on an automatic vehicle, then you can only drive an automatic vehicle. If you cannot drive a manual car, so just keep that in mind. If you have to drive your friend's car, your a rental car, anything like that, you'll not be able to drive that if it's manual and you've only got automatic driving license. UK's driving license is basically valid in almost every country, though I've yet to come across a country where I've traveled to and the UK's driving license is not valid. All you have to do is take your driving license, go to the post office, give them your picture, and they'll make you a international driving license or an international driving permit, which you can take with you and drive internationally. If you're driving internationally, then obviously any penalties that you get on the international license will get transferred onto your UK license. It's a bit hazy because yes, keeping a license is more difficult than getting a license. Anytime you commit an offense, you will be given points on your license. So if you make a small offense, let's say you've been speeding, you'll get 3 points. If you break a red light, you'll get 6 points, and so on. If you get 6 points within the first 2 years of your license will be revoked. So keep that in mind and be very, very extra careful in the first 2 years after you obtain your full license. It's very easy to get 6 points. You just have to run a red light, and even using your mobile phone while you're driving will cost you 6 points. Once you're beyond 2 years, you get up to 12 points before your license is revoked. I think still too many. You don't want 12 points. Just don't be a ridiculous person and just drive within some rules. But if you're driving at 100 on a 40-mile-an-hour road, then the likelihood is you're going to be charged with rash and dangerous driving rather than just speeding. If you drink and drive, your license can be revoked straight away. Once your license is revoked, you can reapply for the license. However, if you reapply for the license, you have to take theory again. You have to take the extended practical test if your license has already been revoked, and that extended test lasts for about an hour and a half or something, so it's just more pressure. This is all for now. So we have covered how to obtain your provisional license, how to obtain your full license, what to do after you've got your full license, and some basic know-how of the road rules. I'm not gonna go over the highway code. If you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'll keep making some useful videos. If you've got any more questions, leave them in comments below. I'll answer them. It was nice seeing you. Look after yourselves. All the best with your driving, and bye.